Good afternoon. As you can see, I'm now walking on a paved road, which means that I'm getting closer to the kind of most built up area of Latvia outside Riga, which are the towns and settlements that are strung out along the river. I can't remember the name exactly of that river, but it bisects Latvia and it bisects a lot of the other towns on its course. And it is kind of central to Latvian geography and, in a way, identity as well, I suppose. Now, after little more than a week in the country, it is not enough, obviously, especially with my lack of interaction with the locals, to really give an insight into national character. I can only tell you what I've observed. And I've observed, firstly, not a great deal on the route I've taken. I have seen nobody walking on the roads or on these gravel tracks that go between the minor settlements in the Latvian interior. I met one middle-aged woman who was walking the opposite direction to me on one of those dusty tracks, and she seemed slightly drunk and a little angry, but she was okay with me, and we could only communicate in my kind of pidgin Russian, so there wasn't too much to be said. But apart from her, I've only had cars whizzing past me, kicking up dust on the gravel tracks, or larger logging trucks, which are a kind of common sight because obviously forestry is a major industry here, so you get some big logging trucks. That said, courtesy on the road does seem to be very good. They generally leave a wide berth when going round me, and they have in the towns they have zebra crossings, and people always stop at these, always, 100%. Even if you're like 20 yards away and they see you're going to cross the road, they will stop at these zebra crossings. No buttons or anything like that, or waiting. Literally, they see you, they stop. So, very high level of driver pedestrian consciousness, which is good, obviously. And even in Riga, they have traffic lights that actually tick for 1 minute. So you have 1 minute to cross the road. So, which I think is a little bit too much. And then I think there's also a minute or maybe more when you're waiting for the light to turn green. So there's a lot of time spent twiddling your thumbs, but it's all geared towards your safety as a pedestrian, obviously. So that's good. So aside from this kind of official courteousness where they obey the rules, there is on the flip side a kind of, or I've observed, a lack of interest, perhaps even a standoffishness to outsiders. Well, i.e. me. You know, people aren't interested. No one's offered me a lift. When I was in Britain, once I got to, well, to Wales really, in the west of the country, the least populated areas, several times people did stop and offer me a lift. Nobody's done that so far, which I'm not complaining about, because it would lead to awkward excuses and awkward explanations about, no, I'm walking across your country, which is obviously going to seem a little strange. So there hasn't been much opportunity for contact with people, except when I go into the shops. And again, sometimes, you know, the people are okay. Other times there seems to be a very thinly veiled sort of suspicion, which is understandable. I mean, I guess hardly anyone visits these places. I mean, why would you? There's nothing there. So they see somebody with a backpack, a roll mat, perhaps they think I'm a tramp. One lady did think I might be a cyclist, because you do get long distance, you know, Western European cyclists coming here, and I can see why. It's definitely a great nation to cycle in. You know, kind of wish I had a bike now, because you'd be eating up these miles and, you know, enjoying the scenery, not trudging along in the gutter. But this is the path I chose, so I will stick it for now. So yes, back to the kind of human angle. Hasn't been too much of it really. I walked past a guy earlier, and I could see him in the distance, and he could see me. I mean, you don't see many people at all on the road or not, even in the fields, you know. And he was obviously struck to see somebody walking along one of these gravel tracks, which seem to average about 10 miles between each of the separate settlements. And he just stood there looking. He called over to get his mate to come and look, and his mate, maybe it was his dad, came up, looked, then walked away. And, you know, I could see this from a couple of 100 meters away, and I got closer and closer and closer. And he was just looking at me like he had never seen a backpack before. And, you know, I don't want to be rude, but he did have that kind of archetypal sort of yokel look. And, you know, I nodded at him and said "Sveiki," and he just sort of grunted and nodded back. So just a farm labourer, I guess. But anyway, he seemed suitably shocked that somebody was walking along these roads, these gravel tracks that nobody walks along. But, you know, couldn't really get much more out of that than what I've just told you. However, contrast with that, I was also this morning, I was travelling or walking along that same gravel path, but about 8 miles previously, and a couple of girls on their bikes, you know, teenagers, you know, they'd seen me in the shop buying something before I left the settlement, and they had rode out, and on their way back, they said something. It wasn't Sveiki, and it wasn't Labrit. It was another Latvian greeting, you know, to me, which I thought was nice. You know, you never know quite how to interact with strangers, especially, you know, females or children, because, you know, if they think you're a tramp or some sort of foreign predator, it's always, you know, a little bit something to be wary of. But, you know, they were openly friendly, perhaps because they'd seen me in the shop earlier and seen me pay for stuff, realised I wasn't just a vagabond. And a little bit later, I was on the same track and passed three children just in a garden. They were in a sandpit or something. I didn't really, you know, stop to look. I was just walking past, and they had obviously seen me, and they got up and they all were shouting "Sveiki, Sveiki," waving when I was about 20 yards away. I turned around and waved back. So again, this kind of contrasts with the sort of the way some people ignore you, adults, a lot of them, or are not interested. This kind of jolly greetings I had from 5 different people, all under the age of 18 this morning. So I guess whether that's just a country thing, you kind of greet passers-by or whatever. Although when I did turn around to return their greeting, I had my sunglasses on, and you know, they just seemed a little bit shocked. I don't know whether it was the sunglasses or the beard or whatever, but you know, they obviously realised I wasn't from around these parts. But so, you know, that was nice. Although, you know, obviously couldn't really discuss anything with them, just said hello, and that was that. Which is better than what happened the other day, when I was literally trying to ask somebody for a place to camp. And there was a large official building, and the man came out and his wife, and they were getting into the car. And they saw me, and I walked over to them, and I was about 20 yards from them, and I kind of waved my hand in greeting, and literally just looked right through me, got into the car, and drove off, which obviously I thought was quite rude. And the day before as well, I mean, this is how rarely I'm coming into contact with people. I was walking along the track, and an old lady on a bicycle, she got off to walk up the hill, and so naturally I caught up with her because I was walking and she was walking. And as I passed her, I was like, "Sveiki," you know, trying to be polite and stuff like that. And again, she did the same thing. She just looked straight through me as if I wasn't there. So this is kind of strange, you know. I don't know whether they're worried that I'm a beggar or that I'm a danger in some way. Obviously to me it just comes off as plain rude, you know. In Britain we do tend to smile or respond, you know, to individuals in a strange place or in the countryside. Of course it's different in cities or towns where you don't acknowledge, you know, anybody really. But yeah, I was kind of struck by these two incidences. I don't know whether it's the culture or it's just in some ways my appearance. You know, my t-shirt is clean, you know, I've washed it twice, and you know, I don't think I smell. I'm not walking along brandishing beer cans or anything. But I suppose I am an unusual sight, and perhaps this is a kind of yokel mentality, because I haven't seen any other foreigners out here at all. Guess it's not the season and it's not the places. There's nothing to do walking along on these dirt tracks. You're literally just trekking along in the gravel for miles on end, and even the locals don't do it. So probably is a bit weird. That said, you know, the scope for walking in this country is vast. But rather than people walking along these gravel tracks, they could, you know, they could cut some footpaths through this vast array of forest and woodland, like right across the country, zigzagging, you know, without damaging the woodland, but just providing, you know, footpaths through the countryside. And there's so much of it. I mean, it is countryside, so that would be good. And again, the proposed development of the coastal footpath, I mean, it's pretty much, from what I've seen, it's already there without them making it an official path. You're just free to walk through that nice open woodland next to the sea. But yeah, the scope for walking here through countryside is spectacular, but it's just not there at the moment. You just end up, you know, walking along the road, a gravel track, or being confined to these rather limited walkways in national parks, places like that. Of course, I haven't seen the whole country. There's a lot to be explored, but I'm trying to make a beeline through it at the moment, rather than going to every scenic spot and doing their circular treks in a limited area. So, you know, I can't give a full appraisal of what's going on here, but it's what I've seen. I can hear a big lorry coming, so I'll be quiet for a moment. Yeah, I've put up some footage of some ruins I've passed quite a lot. You notice it a lot, this kind of derelict barns and more historical buildings as well. Don't know what they are. Some of them are obviously from previous industrialization, like huge, clearly factories or warehouses now just gutted, and then other period buildings. I don't know whether they're kind of like the old houses of the aristocracy or something, and then just old farm buildings, agricultural stuff. So there's a lot of decay in the structures you see. But then on the flip side, you do see these really idyllic, kind of wooden barns and old Russian style wooden houses. Tractor. And I'll say this for the Latvians, the areas which are lived in, they seem to take care of. Like you have these standardized apartment blocks that you get throughout the whole of the old Soviet bloc. But here, you know, they decorate them with bouquets of flowers. A lot of them are quite freshly painted. So they don't have that aura of dilapidation that so much of the old Soviet world has, and I kind of associate a little bit with with Eastern Europe and urbanized areas in Central Asia as well. So that they clearly take a pride in the appearance of where they're living. You see these neat little farmsteads, kind of fires smoking on the lawn, agricultural machinery, little pagodas or summer houses have been put up, and often there's a well from which they draw water, and maybe a small pond or other water features as well, and a chained up big dog that will bark at you when you walk past. So you get the idea, at least where I've been, of these kind of sparsely populated agricultural land, forested areas with these little farmsteads between. And again, rarely a soul to be seen. And when you do see people, it becomes clear how unremoved they often are from that agricultural lifestyle. Like today, one of the 3 people I've seen today, the second was a man in a field with a scythe. So, you know, that's it could have been a scene from centuries ago if it wasn't for the fact he was wearing tracksuit bottoms and then got into a red car, battered old red car, and drove off. And again, it's been quite a common sight to see a kind of late middle-aged to old woman out in the field tending a cow, or bent double, you know, weeding. So agriculture is still, unsurprisingly, a key part of the lifestyle in this area. But the fact that doesn't always appear to be mechanized. When you see tractors, you see combine harvesters and other things, and hear them, but you still see people out in the fields. Not many, but I've seen a couple. So, you know, that is interesting. Yeah, another thing I just remembered about the houses as well you pass is they often have very, very nice signs out the front, often with a small tree and maybe some decoration, whether it would be like a wagon wheel seems to be a popular one, and also some other little, like a carved wooden sign, flowers. So again, this kind of pride in appearance, but mixed in with this rusticity. So I don't have any idea on the causes of this, but it is interesting to consider the kind of Germanic and the Russian influence. And you can see both here, even at a visible level, not without even, you know, delving deep into the culture. So kind of the orderliness, the neatness, adherence to presentation. Then on the flip side, the relics of Soviet era architecture and stuff like that. And both of these things combined with just you know, bare agricultural life that could have been, you know, centuries, even millennia old. Okay, that'll do for now. See you when I get there.